Why do you feel like a stranger in your own home? Why does walking through your front door feel like entering a tomb instead of a sanctuary? Why have you been lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at walls that once promised comfort but now whisper condemnation? Listen to me, chosen one, what you're feeling isn't paranoia, it's prophecy. You've been sleeping in a house God burned down long ago. You've been trying to grow flowers in cursed soil, wondering why nothing blooms. You've been forcing yourself to smile in spaces that are suffocating your spirit. And tonight, right now, heaven is breaking its silence. This isn't just another inspirational message. This is a divine intervention, a sacred disruption sent directly to your soul because God sees what others cannot see. He sees you drowning in plain sight, fighting battles in hallways where no one hears your cries, carrying burdens in bedrooms where peace died years ago. You know that ache in your chest when you pull into your driveway, that weight that settles on your shoulders the moment you cross the threshold. That's not depression, beloved. That's your spirit recognizing enemy territory. This is why you can't rest. This is why joy feels like a foreign language in your own living room. This is why your prayers feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling instead of reaching heaven. You've been trying to worship in a place where worship goes to die. But tonight, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is speaking with the same authority he used when he commanded Moses, "Tell Pharaoh, let my people go." This isn't a suggestion. This isn't a gentle nudge. God is forcing an exodus because what's coming will require clean ground, consecrated space, and a heart that can finally exhale. Some of you are thinking, but I can't afford to move. I have no options. Listen, when God commanded the Israelites to leave Egypt, they had no GPS, no moving truck, no savings account. They had a word, and that word split seas, dropped manna, and turned deserts into highways. Before we go deeper into this prophetic word, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. Right now, if your spirit is bearing witness to this truth, if you feel that holy stirring that says, "This is me, this is my story, I need you to do something bold," in the comments below, type these words: "I'm ready to leave the old." Say it out loud first. "I won't survive here." Let your soul hear your voice. Declare it. Type it. Declare it. Because, beloved, your soul is already packing. The question isn't whether you're ready. The question is, will you obey the exodus when God opens the door? Why does your body feel heavy the moment you walk through your front door? Why do headaches that vanish everywhere else return like clockwork when you're home? Why does the air itself feel thick, oppressive, like you're breathing through wet concrete? You've been blaming stress. You've been blaming age. You've been blaming everything except the truth that's been staring you in the face for years. Your house is making you sick, not just physically, spiritually. Listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter everything you thought you knew about the place you call home. In Leviticus 14:34-35, God warned Moses about something so serious, so spiritually dangerous, that it required immediate divine intervention. When you enter the land of Canaan, which I give you as a possession, and I put a mark of mildew in a house in the land you possess, the owner of the house must go and tell the priest, "I have seen something that looks like mildew in my house." This wasn't just about physical mold, beloved. This was about spiritual contamination so toxic that God commanded his people to evacuate immediately. You thought it was just you, didn't you? You thought you were losing your mind. The chronic fatigue that doctors can't explain, the anxiety that hits the moment you park in your driveway, The way your children become different people the second they walk through that door, angry, withdrawn, rebellious for no reason you can understand. But here's the truth that will set you free. Your house is rejecting you. I want to tell you about Margaret, a 67-year-old woman from Tennessee who contacted me last year. She'd been suffering from debilitating migraines for 15 years. Every specialist, every medication, every treatment failed. But within 48 hours of moving out of her house, a house she later discovered had been the site of a tragic suicide. 20 years earlier, her migraines vanished completely. Gone. Like they never existed. "Pastor," she told me through tears, "I thought I was dying slowly in that house. Turns out I was." You see, what we call home can become a tomb. What we call shelter can become a prison. And what we call normal can become the very thing that's draining the life from our bones. The enemy doesn't just attack your mind or your body, he attacks your environment. He poisons the atmosphere where you eat, sleep, and try to find peace. Because if he can contaminate your sanctuary, he can contaminate your sanity. Look around your house right now. Have you noticed how arguments start over nothing, how joy feels forced, how even your prayers feel like they're hitting the ceiling and falling back down? That's not coincidence. That's spiritual warfare manifesting in your living room. The ancient Israelites understood something we've forgotten. Places can hold spiritual residue. Trauma leaves marks. Pain stains walls. And sometimes, listen to me, sometimes God looks at a house and says, "This place is too contaminated for my child to heal here." When the priests examined houses in Leviticus, they weren't looking for surface problems. They were checking for spiritual infection that had grown so deep, so toxic, that it was now visible to the naked eye. The mildew wasn't just mildew-it, was a physical manifestation of spiritual poison. How many of you right now are feeling that weight in your chest? That recognition that says, "This is my story. This is my house. This is my hell disguised as home." You've tried everything, haven't you? You've prayed over every room. You've anointed every doorpost. You've played worship music until the neighbors complained. But nothing changes, because God isn't calling you to fight this battle. He's calling you to flee from it. Here's what the church won't tell you. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is pack your bags. Sometimes obedience looks like abandoning what's familiar for what's unknown. Sometimes God's deliverance doesn't come as healing, it comes as an exit strategy. The Israelites didn't try to renovate Egypt. They left it in the dust. I'm talking to the woman whose marriage started crumbling the day you moved into that house. I'm talking to the man whose children became strangers under that roof. I'm talking to everyone who's been slowly dying in a place that looks like blessing but feels like burial. Your spirit has been screaming for years, but you've been too polite to listen. You've been too responsible, too practical, too afraid of what people might think if you just left. But what if I told you that God has been waiting for you to get angry enough to obey? What if your desperation isn't a sign of weakness, but a sign that heaven is about to move? The mildew on your walls isn't just moisture damage. It's a physical manifestation of spiritual contamination that's been slowly poisoning everything precious to you. Your health, your peace, your family, your faith. And tonight, like those ancient priests, God is looking at your house and declaring, "This dwelling is unclean. My child cannot heal here. It's time to go." So I'm asking you directly, chosen one, how long will you let a building hold your breakthrough hostage? How many more years will you sacrifice your sanity to save face? How much more of your life will you surrender to a space that's been silently stealing your joy? If you've felt it, that crushing weight every time you cross your threshold, that suffocating sense that your own home has become your enemy, then type these words in the comments. My home is not my healing. Because what's coming next will show you exactly why God is about to force an exodus from the very place you thought was your refuge. You've been hammering nails into the walls of a tomb, trying to build a future in a space meant to bury you. For years, you've been calling it home. You've been calling it stability. You've been calling it God's provision. But tonight, the Spirit of Truth is whispering a different name for that place you've been defending, decorating, and desperately trying to make work. It was never your home. It was your testing ground. Listen to what Isaiah 43:18-19 declares with the authority of heaven. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. But here's what breaks my heart, chosen one. You've been so busy trying to resurrect what God already buried that you've missed the new thing He's been preparing to birth. You've been watering dead ground, wondering why nothing grows. You've been painting walls that God condemned years ago, wondering why the beauty never lasts. You've been lighting candles in a mausoleum, wondering why the darkness keeps swallowing the light. They told you this was success. They told you to be grateful. They told you to bloom where you're planted. But nobody told you that some soil is cursed, and no amount of faith can make flowers grow in a graveyard. How long have you been there? 5 years? 10? 20? And in all that time, what has truly thrived? Your marriage? Your children? Your peace? Your purpose? Or have you been slowly dying, one compromised dream at a time, one suffocated prayer at a time, one sleepless night at a time, telling yourself this is just how life is supposed to feel? Let me tell you about David, a 72-year-old man from Ohio who spent 15 years in a house that felt like a prison. Every morning, he'd wake up with a heaviness he couldn't explain. Every evening, he'd sit in his recliner and wonder why retirement felt more like a sentence than a reward. His wife grew distant. His grandchildren stopped visiting. His joy evaporated like morning dew. I kept thinking I was ungrateful, he told me. I had a roof over my head. I had food on the table. Who was I to complain? But then God spoke through a dream so vivid, so clear, that David woke up weeping. In the dream, he was trying to plant roses in a cemetery. Every time he dug, he hit bones. Every time he planted, the flowers wilted. And then a voice said, "Son, you can't grow life where death is the landlord." Within 6 months, David and his wife had moved to a small apartment near their daughter. The heaviness lifted, the laughter returned, the marriage healed, the grandchildren started visiting again. "Pastor," he said, "I wasn't dying because I was old. I was dying because I was in the wrong place." You see, the enemy's greatest deception isn't convincing you that bad things are good. It's convincing you that survival is success. It's making you grateful for breadcrumbs when God has prepared a banquet. It's teaching you to call a cage security and a tomb home. How many of you right now are feeling that knife of recognition twisting in your chest? How many of you have been telling yourself, this is just how it is? This is just getting older. This is just life. No, beloved, this is captivity disguised as comfort. You've been trying to build altars where God issued evacuation orders. You've been trying to establish a legacy in a place that's been systematically erasing your destiny. You've been fighting to stay in Egypt while God has been calling you to Canaan. That house was never yours, was Egypt dressed like Canaan. Look at your life honestly. Look at the past 5 years. Have you grown or have you shrunk? Have you expanded or have you contracted? Have you moved forward or have you been running in place, exhausting yourself in a hamster wheel disguised as progress? The Israelites spent 400 years in Egypt, and by the end, they were so broken they couldn't even imagine freedom. They begged Moses to take them back to slavery because at least in Egypt, they knew what to expect. At least in Egypt, they had onions and garlic, even if they had to eat them in chains. Is that you? Have you been so conditioned to dysfunction that peace feels foreign? Have you been so accustomed to struggle that you've forgotten what rest looks like? Have you been surviving so long that you've forgotten what it means to thrive? God never intended for you to just survive. Chosen one, He never called you to simply endure. He never designed you to just get by, counting down the days until you can escape to heaven. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who brought water from a rock, who made the sun stand still, that God lives inside you, and He has been suffocating in the small spaces you've been calling sufficient. Your soul has been pacing like a caged lion because lions weren't created for cages. Your spirit has been screaming because what God built for flight has been trapped in a basement. But here's what the devil didn't count on. God is about to force an exodus, whether you think you're ready or not. He's about to move you out of survival and into abundance. He's about to take you from the graveyard to the garden. The question isn't whether you deserve better. The question is whether you'll stop defending what God is ready to destroy. Right now, I want you to declare something that's going to shake hell and activate heaven. Type these words in the comments, but first, say them out loud so your soul hears your voice breaking agreement with mediocrity. I will not build altars where God has issued evacuation orders, because what's coming next will reveal the exact moment God decided your current season was over, and why the timing of your exodus isn't up for negotiation. Have you ever noticed how every time you try to leave, something catastrophic happens? The car breaks down. The bank account empties. Someone gets sick. A crisis erupts out of nowhere, forcing you to stay exactly where you are, exactly where you're dying inside. That's not coincidence, chosen one. That's warfare. Hell has been padlocking your peace, hiding your mail, and delaying your destiny because the enemy knows something you're just beginning to understand. The moment you walk out that door, everything changes. Not just for you, but for generations that will follow in your footsteps. Listen to what happened to Rebecca, a 58-year-old widow from Ohio. For 3 years after her husband's death, she couldn't sleep in their bedroom. Night after night, she'd lie awake feeling watched, oppressed, suffocating in a space that once held love, but now held only shadows. Her teenage son stopped laughing, stopped bringing friends over, started failing classes for no reason doctors could explain. It was like the house was eating us alive, she told me. But every time I tried to move, something would go wrong. The realtor would disappear, the loan would fall through. My son would get sick. It was like invisible hands were holding me prisoner. Then she discovered the truth. The previous owner had died by suicide in that very bedroom. The house held more than memories, it held spiritual contamination that was slowly destroying everything she loved. But here's where it gets supernatural. The day Rebecca finally broke free, the day she signed the lease on a new apartment, despite having no logical way to afford it, her son laughed for the first time in 3 years. That same night, he brought home his first A in months. And Rebecca, she slept 8 hours straight without medication, without fear, without the crushing weight that had been suffocating her for nearly 4 years. The enemy didn't want to let her go because he knew what would happen when she left. Freedom, restoration, joy returning to a family he'd been systematically destroying. In Acts 7-3, God commanded Abraham, "Leave your country and your people, and go to the land I will show you." Notice, God didn't say the land he had shown him, the land he will show him. Abraham had to move in faith, not in sight. He had to trust the process before he could see the promise. But you know what happened the moment Abraham took that first step? Opposition, famine, war, conflict. Because hell fights what heaven favors. Right now, the enemy is terrified of you. Not the broken version of you that's been surviving in spiritual quicksand. Not the exhausted version that's been fighting battles in hallways where no one can hear you scream. He's terrified of the person you'll become the moment you step out of his territory and into God's promise. That's why your phone rings with emergencies every time you start packing. That's why family members suddenly need you desperately when you mention moving. That's why financial disasters appear like clockwork whenever you get close to freedom. The enemy has been playing chess with your emotions, using guilt as his queen, fear as his rook, and responsibility as his knight. He's convinced you that leaving equals abandoning, that moving equals selfishness, that your peace is less important than everyone else's comfort. But here's the truth that will shatter every chain he's wrapped around your ankles. You cannot save anyone from a sinking ship. You cannot pour life into empty vessels when your own cup has been cracked by years of spiritual abuse. You cannot be the answer to everyone else's problems when you're drowning in a place that's become your personal hell. God isn't calling you to be a martyr. He's calling you to be free. The resistance you're feeling isn't proof that you're making the wrong decision. It's proof that you're making the right one. Hell only fights this hard when heaven is about to win. Every delay is demonic. Every setback is spiritual. Every crisis that conveniently appears when you try to leave is confirmation that the enemy knows your exodus will be his defeat. But I want you to understand something that will change how you see every obstacle from now on. The enemy can create delays, but he cannot stop divine timing. He can create detours, but he cannot change your destination. He can create temporary setbacks, but he cannot touch eternal setups. When Pharaoh finally let the Israelites go, he immediately regretted it and sent his army after them. But what was meant to destroy them became the stage for their greatest miracle. The Red Sea didn't just part, it swallowed their oppressors. Your exodus isn't just about escape, it's about victory. It's about watching the very forces that tried to keep you bound get swallowed up by the power of God moving on your behalf. That job offer that keeps getting delayed, that house that keeps falling through, that apartment that suddenly becomes unavailable. The enemy is playing his last cards because he knows once you cross over, you're beyond his reach. But here's what hell doesn't want you to know. God has already prepared your crossing. The way is already made. The provision is already released. The door is already open. All heaven is waiting for is your yes, your step, your refusal to negotiate with the very forces that have been slowly killing your spirit. So I'm asking you directly, warrior, how long will you let the enemy hold your breakthrough hostage? How many more manufactured crises will you let convince you that staying in hell is safer than stepping into heaven's plan? If you're tired of fighting battles in shadows, if you're ready to stop negotiating with the darkness that's been feeding off your exhaustion, then type these words in the comments. I'm done fighting in shadows. Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly how to recognize when God is opening your Red Sea and why the enemy's resistance is actually proof that your promised land is closer than you think. What if everything you call security is actually your spiritual prison? What if the very walls you've decorated with family photos have become the bars that keep your soul from breathing? What if the place you've called home for decades has slowly transformed into the tomb where your dreams went to die? Sit with that for a moment, beloved. Let it settle into the deepest parts of your heart where truth lives. You've stayed because you thought you were being faithful. You've endured because you believed that's what good people do. They don't abandon ship. They don't give up. They don't walk away from what they've built with their own hands. But here's the devastating truth that's going to shatter your comfortable cage. Familiarity is not faithfulness. Staying in a place God has already left is not loyalty, it's rebellion, disguised as devotion. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, Solomon wrote, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Notice, he didn't say some things have seasons. He said everything. Even the homes we've poured our hearts into, even the neighborhoods where we buried our umbilical cords, even the addresses we've memorized as sacred. You've stayed for the kids, haven't you? You told yourself they needed stability, roots, consistency. But look around. Now your children are grown, moved away, building their own lives in places that feel alive. And you're still sitting in a house that's become a museum of what used to be, surrounded by furniture that remembers every fight, every tear, every dream that died in that living room. Even the furniture remembers your pain. That couch where you cried yourself to sleep during the divorce. That kitchen table where the diagnosis was delivered. That bedroom where loneliness became your most faithful companion. You think you're preserving memories, but those memories are molding too, festering in corners, poisoning the air you breathe, whispering lies about who you used to be, instead of declaring who God is calling you to become. Here's the spiritual contradiction that's been slowly killing you. You pray for new beginnings while clutching old endings. You beg God for fresh starts while surrounded by furniture that's been marinated in yesterday's defeats. You cry out for breakthrough while living in a space that's been broken for years. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here. 2 Corinthians 5:17. But how can you become new when everything around you is determined to keep you old? I need you to understand something that might break your heart before it sets you free. What you call home, God calls a cage. That house you've been so proud of, the one you've sacrificed everything to keep, God sees it as the very thing that's been slowly suffocating the person He created you to be. You've been a bird trying to soar while locked in a cage you decorated yourself, singing songs of freedom while your wings atrophy from disuse. You know it's true. You feel it every morning when you wake up in that bedroom, that crushing weight that settles on your chest before your feet even hit the floor. That inexplicable sadness that washes over you when you walk through your living room. That desperate longing for something different that you've been calling discontent, but God calls destiny. The most dangerous words in the English language aren't "I hate this place." The most dangerous words are "I'm used to it." You've become used to the spiritual suffocation, used to the emotional flatline, used to the way hope dies a little more each day in that house. You've normalized what was never meant to be normal, and you've called survival success. But listen to me. Chosen one, God is not asking you to get used to anything. He's asking you to get up and go. Remember Lot's wife? She had her chance to walk away from destruction, to leave behind the city that had corrupted her family, poisoned her peace, and perverted her purpose. But when the moment came to move forward, she looked back. She chose the familiar hell over the uncertain heaven. Genesis 19:26 tells us she became a pillar of salt, a monument to the deadly power of refusing to let go. You're at that same crossroads tonight. God is about to rain down judgment on every place that's been slowly killing His children, and He's giving you one last chance to walk away. But you have to choose. Will you be Lot's wife, forever frozen in the past? Or will you be Abraham, stepping into a promise you can't yet see? Here's what terrifies you. You don't know who you'll be without this address. This house has been your identity for so long that leaving feels like dying. But what if staying is what's actually killing you? What if the death you're avoiding by staying is actually the resurrection you're postponing by leaving? The walls that once protected you have become the barriers that imprison you. The roof that once sheltered you has become the ceiling that limits you. The foundation you once built your life on has become the quicksand that's slowly swallowing your destiny. God is not asking you to abandon your memories. He's asking you to stop living in them. He's not asking you to forget your past. He's asking you to stop letting your past dictate your future. In your heart right now, you know I'm telling the truth. You can feel it stirring, that ancient longing for something more, something different, something alive. That's not discontent, beloved. That's your spirit recognizing the voice of the God who's been calling you out of this place for longer than you want to admit. So let me ask you this. How much longer will you let the illusion of safety kill your spirit? How many more years will you sacrifice on the altar of what people might think? How much more of your life will you surrender to a building that's become your beautiful grave? Whisper it with me right now. Lord, I'm afraid to move, but I'm more afraid to stay. Say it again, louder this time. Let your own voice be the trumpet that brings down the walls of this Jericho you've been calling home. Because what's coming next will show you exactly where God is preparing to plant you and why the ground beneath your feet has to be completely different soil. Stop looking at your bank account. Stop calculating mortgage payments. Stop measuring your worth by the numbers on a screen that mean nothing to the God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Right now, while you're sitting there drowning in doubt, wondering how you'll ever escape the prison you call home, there's an angel standing in a place you've never seen, holding a key you've never touched, to a door that's been waiting for you since before you even knew you needed to leave. Heaven already signed your moving papers. Listen to me, chosen one, the same Jesus who looked at his disciples in their darkest hour and declared, I go to prepare a place for you in John 14:2. That same Jesus is not up in glory twiddling his thumbs while you suffer in spiritual suffocation. He's been working, he's been building, he's been orchestrating every detail of your exodus while you've been fighting for breath in that toxic atmosphere you call home. But here's what's about to shake you to your core. God doesn't operate on your timeline, your credit score, or your human logic. He operates on divine decree. And tonight, that decree is being released over your life with the force of heaven's thunder. You've been staring at closed doors so long, you forgot that God specializes in creating doors where none existed. You've been counting pennies so long, you forgot that the same God who fed 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 loaves doesn't need your 401k to relocate you into his perfect will. Let me tell you something that's going to break every chain of financial fear wrapped around your faith. God doesn't wait for your credit score. He moves on your obedience. In Zechariah 4:6, the Lord thunders, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord Almighty. That means your breakthrough isn't coming through your strength, your connections, your savings account, or your 5-year plan. It's coming through the supernatural intervention of the Most High God, who turns impossibilities into testimonies. I want you to picture this. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, there's a house somewhere maybe 5 miles from where you're sitting, maybe 500, and it's empty. Not because nobody wants it, but because it's been reserved, set apart, consecrated for someone specific. You. The previous occupants moved out right on schedule, though they didn't know they were making room for you. The landlord lowered the price last week, though he can't explain why. The paperwork that should take months will clear in days, and the people who should say no will find themselves saying yes without understanding their own decision. Because when God prepares a place, he doesn't just prepare the building, he prepares every heart, every mind, every circumstance that stands between you and your promise. But listen carefully. This miracle is not coming because you've earned it. It's not coming because you've prayed hard enough or sacrificed long enough or suffered enough to deserve it. It's coming because you've finally reached the end of your own ability to make it work. And that's exactly where God's power kicks in. How many of you have been lying awake at night, calculating and recalculating numbers that don't add up? How many have been on real estate websites, looking at houses you can't afford, in neighborhoods that seem impossible, dreaming dreams that feel foolish in the light of your bank statement? Stop it, right now. Stop measuring God's promise by your pocket. In 1 Kings 17, God sent Elijah to a widow who was down to her last meal, literally preparing to eat and die. But when she obeyed the prophet's instruction, her oil didn't run out and her flour didn't fail, not because she had abundance, but because she acted in faith when everything looked impossible. That's your story, beloved. That widow's miracle is your blueprint. Your obedience in the midst of impossibility is about to unlock a supernatural flow of provision that will leave you weeping in worship. One day, you'll be crying in bed, begging God for a way out, convinced it's hopeless. The next, you'll be signing papers with tears streaming down your face, whispering, "Only God could have done this." That's not dramatic storytelling. That's prophetic truth. That's how suddenly heaven moves when earth finally surrenders. I know some of you are thinking, "But Pastor, you don't understand my situation. You don't know how impossible this is." You're right. I don't know your situation, but I know your God. And your God has a track record of making the impossible look easy. He parted seas for people who couldn't swim. He dropped manna for people who couldn't hunt. He brought water from rocks for people who couldn't dig wells. And He's about to move you into a place you couldn't afford, through doors you couldn't open, with resources you didn't have. Because that's just who He is. Right now, supernatural favor is being activated over your life. Real estate agents who should ignore your calls will call you back. Landlords who should demand perfect credit will feel moved to make exceptions. Banks that should deny your application will find themselves approving what shouldn't be approved. That's not luck. That's the Spirit of the living God going before you, smoothing every rough place, making every crooked path straight. But here's what I need you to do right now. While faith is burning in your chest and possibility is awakening in your spirit, declare it out loud. Say these words with your mouth, not just in your mind. I receive the key even before I see the door. Because faith isn't just believing what you can see. Faith is speaking what doesn't yet exist until it has no choice but to manifest. Your exit is already paid for. Your miracle is already funded. Your key is already cut. The only question remaining is this: will you pack your bags in faith, or will you keep counting coins while your deliverance waits at a door you're too afraid to approach? Something extraordinary is happening right now in the invisible realm, and you need to understand what's taking place while you've been sleeping, while you've been doubting, while you've been wondering if God really heard your desperate prayers for deliverance. An angel is walking down your future street, not metaphorically, literally, with measured steps, divine purpose, and supernatural authority. A messenger of the Most High is surveying the neighborhood where you will soon live. He's examining doorframes, blessing foundations, and yes, placing your name in a mailbox that doesn't even know it's yours yet. Do you feel that electric stirring in your spirit right now? That sudden quickening, like your soul just recognized a truth your mind hasn't caught up to. That's because what I'm telling you isn't theory, it's happening in real time. In Exodus 23:20, God declared something so powerful, so absolute, that it still echoes through eternity. See, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Chosen one, your angel didn't just leave heaven's throne room, he's already arrived. While you've been stuck in that toxic house, wondering if you'll ever escape, heaven has been orchestrating a divine relocation that will leave you breathless with wonder. The same God who moved mountains, parted seas, and delivered His people from bondage is moving boxes you haven't even packed yet. But here's where it gets supernatural, where the veil between heaven and earth becomes so thin you can almost touch eternity. You've been receiving divine downloads, haven't you? Those aren't just dreams, they're blueprints. That street name that keeps echoing in your mind at 3 a.m., that number sequence that appears everywhere you look, those random addresses that pop into your head while you're praying. You thought it was your imagination running wild, your desperate heart creating fantasies to cope with your current hell. But what if I told you it's divine navigation? What if your dreams have been speaking louder than your prayers because God has been programming your spirit with coordinates to your promised land? Listen to me carefully. The angel walking your future street isn't just surveying, he's preparing. Every step he takes sanctifies the ground. Every breath he breathes purifies the atmosphere. Every prayer he whispers over that space casts out every demonic assignment that might try to follow you there. Right now, as I speak these words, supernatural light is flooding rooms you've never seen, blessing kitchens where you'll finally find peace, consecrating bedrooms where you'll sleep without nightmares for the first time in years. The enemy has been fighting you so hard lately because he knows what heaven knows. Your exodus isn't coming, it's already begun. The spiritual transfer has been authorized from the throne room of God himself. But here's what will shake you to your core. While you've been begging God for a way out, he's been preparing a way in. While you've been asking for escape, he's been architecting your entrance into a place so drenched in his presence that the moment you cross that threshold, your body will know it's home before your mind can process what's happening. Have you noticed how your prayers have changed lately? How instead of begging for endurance in your current situation, you've started praying for direction, for clarity, for divine timing. That shift isn't coincidence, it's your spirit aligning with heaven's timeline. The dreams are getting more vivid, aren't they? More specific. Colors, textures, sounds. You wake up with the taste of fresh air in your mouth, the scent of hope on your skin. You thought you were losing your mind, but you've been gaining your destiny. Your angel has been working overtime, beloved. While you've been fighting to survive in a place that's been slowly killing you, he's been negotiating with heaven's resources department, filing paperwork for your supernatural provision, clearing roadblocks you don't even know exist yet. And the most beautiful part, this angel isn't just moving logistics, she's moving hearts. Right now, there are people whose names you don't know yet who are being stirred to help you. Landlords who will say yes when they should say no. Mortgage officers who will approve what looks impossible on paper. Family members who will offer assistance you never asked for. The same supernatural force that made Pharaoh beg the Israelites to leave Egypt after holding them captive for 400 years is now working on your behalf. Doors that have been locked for decades are about to swing wide open. But here's the critical moment, chosen one. This transfer requires your participation, not your striving, not your manipulation, but your obedience. When heaven says move, you move. When the door opens, you walk through it. When the provision shows up, you receive it without questioning your worthiness. The angel isn't just preparing your new home, he's preparing you to possess it. Every tear you've cried in that toxic environment, every prayer you've whispered in desperation, every moment you felt forgotten has been building spiritual equity for this moment. You've been dreaming in real estate, haven't you? Seeing yourself in rooms filled with light, walking through spaces where your soul can finally breathe. Those aren't fantasies, they're prophetic previews of what's already been reserved in your name. So I'm asking you directly, if your dreams have been speaking louder than your prayers, if you've been seeing what feels impossible but your spirit knows is inevitable, then declare it boldly in the comments. Heaven is already moving my things. Because what's about to unfold will prove that when God decides to relocate his children, neither hell nor earth can stop the transfer. What if the very thing you're trying to save is the exact thing that's keeping you trapped? Right now, as God prepares to move you into your promised place, there's something heavy in your hands, something you've been clutching so tightly that your knuckles have gone white. Something you've convinced yourself you can't live without, but the truth is, it's been slowly killing you for years. Some grief disguises itself as luggage, beloved. And tonight, we need to talk about what happens when you try to drag your trauma through the doorway of your destiny. Look at her, Lot's wife, standing on the edge of salvation. The angels had grabbed her hand. The fire was falling. Sodom was burning behind her, and the promised land stretched ahead. All she had to do was keep walking forward. But Genesis 19:26 tells us the heartbreaking truth. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. She didn't just glance back, beloved. She turned her entire body toward what God had already condemned. She chose the familiar flames over the foreign freedom. And in that moment of choosing yesterday over tomorrow, she froze forever. You can't move into promise while clutching souvenirs of sorrow. I'm talking to the mother, still carrying her child's baby shoes 30 years later, not as a sweet memory, but as a monument to pain. I'm talking to the woman whose ex-husband's cruelty still lives in her jewelry box, in every piece he gave her that she can't throw away because it was expensive. I'm talking to the man whose father's harsh words still echo in his mind every morning when he looks in the mirror. Listen to me. Some things can't go through the door, Evan, if you love them. God isn't just asking you to change your address. He's asking you to drop the weight of old wounds that have become identity, the weight of family traditions that were never traditions, they were trauma patterns passed down like heirlooms. The weight of beliefs about yourself that someone else planted in your soul when you were too young to know better. But here's what breaks my heart. You've been carrying these burdens for so long, you've forgotten they're not actually part of you. That china cabinet filled with dishes you never use but can't donate because Mama gave them to me, that's not honoring your mother. That's housing her pain. Those photo albums stuffed with pictures of people who hurt you, relationships that nearly destroyed you, seasons that stole your joy. That's not preserving history. That's preserving hurt. And deep down, you know it. You feel the weight every time you walk past those objects. You feel the spiritual heaviness that settles on your shoulders when you touch them. But you've been telling yourself, this is all I have left of them. No, beloved, this is all you have left of the pain they caused. Jesus said in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." But you can't rest while you're carrying a backpack full of bitterness. You can't find peace while you're dragging a suitcase full of shame. The new place God is preparing for you has clean air, pure atmosphere, healed ground. But you can't contaminate it with the poison you've been storing in your closets, your cabinets, your heart. I need to tell you about Eleanor, a 72-year-old widow from Ohio. When her husband died, she kept everything exactly as it was. His coffee cup on the counter, his clothes in the closet, his reading glasses on the nightstand. For 3 years, she lived in a museum of grief. Then God spoke to her about moving to be closer to her daughter, but she couldn't go because she couldn't leave him. One night, sitting in his chair, she heard the Lord whisper, "Eleanor, you're not preserving love, you're preserving death. I want to give you life again, but you have to let me." It took her 2 months to pack his things. 2 months of tears, of wrestling, of letting go piece by piece. But when she finally moved, she told me something that will break your heart. "Pastor, I thought I'd lose him if I let go of his things. But I found him again, not in his clothes or his coffee cup, but in the love we shared that nothing can take away." Some of you are living in museums instead of homes. Some of you are curators of pain instead of creators of peace. And God is saying, I can't move you forward while you're anchored to what's behind. The enemy has convinced you that letting go means forgetting, that releasing means not caring, that moving forward means dishonoring what was. But that's a lie designed to keep you locked in yesterday while your breakthrough waits in tomorrow. Here's the spiritual truth that will set you free. Love doesn't live in objects. Love lives in your heart. And your heart is the only luggage you need for the journey ahead. But this releasing, this dropping of the weighted, won't be easy. It's going to hurt. It's going to feel like death before it feels like life. Because every object you release, every photo you burn, every memory you choose to heal instead of hold, it's going to trigger grief. But here's what you need to understand. That grief isn't new. It's old grief that's been festering in the dark corners of your house, in the hidden spaces of your heart. And the only way to heal it is to feel it, face it, and then let it go. God is not just asking you to move, He's asking you to choose between your pain and your promise, between your wounds and your future, between what hurt you and what's about to heal you. So tell me, chosen one, what are you carrying that's too heavy for the door ahead? What grief has disguised itself as treasure in your house? What memories have you been feeding that should have starved years ago? If your spirit knows it's time to drop the weight, if you're ready to walk through that door with empty hands and a full heart, then say it boldly in the comments. I release what cannot cross into my promise, because what I'm about to show you next will reveal the exact moment when God's people must choose between their past and their purpose. What if I told you that every sleepless night was a question on your final exam? What if every unanswered prayer was actually heaven holding its breath, watching to see if you'd quit or keep believing? What if the silence you thought meant abandonment was actually the sound of God grading your faith? Chosen one, you thought you were forgotten, but you were being examined. You thought God was ignoring you, but heaven was grading your faith. And tonight, right now, I need you to hear something that will change how you see every moment of pain you've endured. You passed. You passed every test they threw at you. Listen to me carefully. The delays weren't punishment, they were your dissertation. The silence wasn't rejection, it was your final exam. And while you were crying in your car, wondering if God even remembered your name, angels were taking notes on your faithfulness. In Psalm 75:6-7, David reveals a truth that will shatter your understanding of timing. For promotion comes neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. But God is the judge. He puts down one and sets up another. You see that? Promotion doesn't come from networking. It doesn't come from luck. It doesn't come from being in the right place at the right time. Promotion comes from passing tests that most people don't even know they're taking. And you, beloved, you've been in graduate school with God. Remember when you lost that job 3 years ago? That wasn't unemployment. That was your midterm exam on trusting His provision. Remember when your health failed and the doctors had no answers? That wasn't sickness. That was your practical exam on whether you'd praise Him in the pit. Remember when everyone you trusted walked away? When your own family misunderstood you? When friends became strangers and support became scarce? That wasn't abandonment. That was your final exam on whether you'd stand alone with God or fall down alone without Him. And here's what heaven recorded. You passed when you praised through silence. You passed when you stayed when it made no sense. You passed when you chose worship over worry, faith over fear, trust over terror. You passed when you kept tithing when your account was empty. You passed when you kept praying when heaven felt closed. You passed when you kept believing when believing felt stupid. Do you understand what I'm telling you? While you thought you were failing, heaven was watching you win. While you thought you were losing ground, God was watching you gain character. While you thought you were going backward, the Almighty was preparing to launch you forward. I want you to picture something with me. Close your eyes and see this. In the throne room of heaven, there's a graduation ceremony happening right now. Angels are applauding, saints are cheering, and God Himself is standing to His feet because one of His chosen ones just completed the most difficult curriculum in the universe, the School of Unwavering Faith. Your name is being called, not whispered, not mentioned, called, announced, echoing through eternity. This one stayed faithful when faithfulness felt foolish. This one kept believing when believing brought no blessing. This one passed every test I gave them, and now it's time for their reward. Heaven is now standing and applauding you. Your name is echoing in eternity. But here's what breaks my heart: some of you still don't believe it. Some of you are sitting there thinking, not me. I failed. I complained. I doubted. I got angry at God. Listen to me, precious one. Your failing grade wasn't your complaints. Your failing grade would have been quitting. Your failing grade wasn't your tears. Your failing grade would have been turning away from God permanently. The fact that you're still here, still listening, still hoping, still breathing, that's your passing grade right there. Job cursed the day he was born, but he never cursed God. David cried out, "How long, O Lord?" But he never stopped crying out to the Lord. Even Jesus asked, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" But he stayed on the cross. Questioning isn't failing, hurting isn't failing, feeling overwhelmed isn't failing, walking away from God forever, that's failing. And you didn't do that. You stayed. When staying felt impossible, you stayed. When leaving felt logical, you stayed. When everyone else would have quit, you stayed. And God saw it all. Every midnight prayer, when your voice was hoarse from crying. Every Sunday you showed up to church when your heart was broken. Every time you chose to trust Him one more day when trust felt like the stupidest thing you could do. Heaven has a transcript of your faithfulness, and it's written in gold. Now here's what happens next. Psalm 30:5 says, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." Your night season is over. Your morning is breaking. Your test results are in, and you scored higher than you ever imagined. The same God who promoted Joseph from prison to palace, who elevated David from shepherd to king, who lifted Esther from orphan to queen, that same God is about to promote you from your season of testing into your season of testimony. But I need you to own it. I need you to accept your passing grade. I need you to stop living like you failed when heaven recorded that you flourished. If you can feel it rising in your spirit, that holy recognition that you did pass, that you did make it through, that you did stay faithful when faithfulness cost you everything, then I need you to declare it. Type these words in the comments. I passed. I passed my test. I passed the delay. Because what comes after graduation isn't just celebration, it's your divine assignment, and the world is waiting for you to step into it. Chapter 9. The house is not the reward. His presence is. You thought you were chasing a house, but you've been following a cloud. All this time, while you've been focused on square footage and mortgage rates, God has been orchestrating something infinitely more sacred. This isn't about real estate, beloved. This is about alignment. This is about stepping into a space where heaven touches earth every single day. Listen to me carefully. The house you're moving into isn't special because of its foundation or its walls. It's sacred because of what will be birthed there. In Joshua 24-15, Joshua didn't declare, "As for me and my property." He declared, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." He understood something most people miss. A house becomes holy, not because of what's built in it, but because of who walks in it. That new space God is preparing, it's not just shelter, it's a sanctuary. It's where your weary soul will finally exhale, where your broken marriage will find its rhythm again, where your prodigal children will remember the sound of your laughter. Can you see it? The kitchen table, where forgiveness will be served with every meal. The living room where tears of joy will replace years of sorrow. The bedroom where you'll finally sleep in peace, not pieces. This move isn't about upgrading your address. It's about upgrading your atmosphere. The house will carry laughter again. Healing will echo in the walls. Your worship will turn into legacy. You're not just walking into a house, chosen one. You're walking into a covenanter, sacred agreement between heaven and earth, that this space will host miracles, birth testimonies, and shelter the presence of the living God. So say this with your whole chest, with every fiber of your being, "This is my covenant move." Because when God moves you, He doesn't just change your location, He transforms your legacy.